So, what we have to do now is to relate all those systems of knowledge which existed once into the modern curriculum. You see, I am making a radical proposal. What happens is, we have made a classification that tradition is something which has to be taken care of in extracurricular way. If it is religion, then you read about religion at home. If it is Unani, then if your father is a Unani doctor, if he is a Hakim, then you learn it from him. Or now there are some Unani colleges, but you know what is the condition of those colleges, how little patronized they are. In Delhi, go to Tibia College. It is the same for last 40 years. I haven't seen any change in it. No updating at all of any kind. We say that if it is economics, then in that case, you don't have to read Arthashastra. Absolutely nothing. I used to visit some professors out of curiosity in my student days in the Delhi School of Economics, at the time when there were great professors there like our Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, and visiting professors like Amartya Sen and several others who were great names. And never in their syllabus did I hear that there was a serious study of Arthashastra. Now, it is very fashionable for some people to give a lecture on Arthashastra. About 2 months ago, a former ambassador of India gave a lecture on Arthashastra at India International, and he said a few very nice things that Arthashastra has. I have no quarrel with such lectures. But let me ask you a question. Is this kind of ornamental lecturing enough to really explore what is Arthashastra? Not unless there are departments which are studying it. Not unless there are scholars which are studying it. Not unless there is research. Not unless there is debate. What is right, what is wrong, what is useful in that text today, what is not useful, what was the social system, how can that social system be of some use to us today. Unless you are thinking about that very acutely, you cannot make use of those texts. So you see, the whole Indian tradition has a very large number of texts which are texts of knowledge systems and which have been called the Shastras. And there is no area of knowledge either in humanity or in sciences which does not have a Shastra to it. There are very practical Shastras, how to make a perfume. Then there are Shastras which are about social behavior, codes, marriage, life, acceptance, areas of how to build a city, how to make armaments, how to breed horses. All of these things have been worked out by texts which are not written by a single person, but which have been written by generations of scholarship. So, these texts have to be studied at the university. This is my submission. You can ask me a very simple question. अगर हम ऐसा करें तो सचमुच कुछ लाभ होगा? Is there any example in history that if people have studied old text, then have they gained anything? You'll ask me this question. You have every right to ask me this question. And I'll give you an answer. Those of you who may have read a bit of history would know that Europe had a great change in its knowledge systems around the 15th century. एक नया सोच वहाँ पैदा हुआ, नई विद्याएं आईं, लोगों ने बहुत सारे ग्रंथ पढ़ने शुरू किए, और जो पहले पढ़ रहे थे ज़्यादातर ग्रंथ जो धर्म के ऊपर आधारित थे, क्रिश्चियनिटी पर आधारित थे, उनको एक तरफ न रखकर, उनको भी साथ रखकर उन्होंने नए, वैसे बहुत पुराने लेकिन दोबारा ग्रंथ पढ़े। वो कौन से ग्रंथ थे? What were those texts? And these were texts not even of their own culture. ये उनके अपने टेक्स्ट नहीं थे, ये ग्रीक और रोमन टेक्स्ट थे। तो ग्रीक और रोमन टेक्स्ट को यूरोप ने 15वीं शताब्दी से पढ़ना शुरू किया और उन्होंने एक नई संस्कृति का आविष्कार किया, जिसको आप मॉडर्न साइंटिफिक थॉट कहते हैं, व्हाट इज कॉल्ड नेचुरल साइंसेस, मॉडर्न फिजिक्स, मॉडर्न केमिस्ट्री। ये सारी साइंसेस जो हैं डेवलप ही यूरोप में जब हुई। ये किसके टेक्स्ट पढ़ के? ये क्लासिकल टेक्स्ट पढ़ के, जो अपने भी नहीं थे, जो किसी दूसरे के थे। इंग्लैंड में वो टेक्स्ट नहीं लिखे गए, फ्रांस में नहीं लिखे गए, वो उनकी लैंग्वेजेस में नहीं थे, वो एंशिएंट ग्रीक में थे, वो लैटिन में थे। उन लैंग्वेजेस को स्टडी किया गया, उनकी स्टडी के करने वालों को प्राथमिकता दी गई, एक ऑनर दी गई, और उन्होंने उन टेक्स्ट का ट्रांसलेशन किया। यहाँ तक कि धर्म ग्रंथों का ट्रांसलेशन किया। न्यू टेस्टामेंट तो ग्रीक में लिखा गया था, वो अंग्रेजी में थोड़ा ही था। तो किंग जेम्स द फर्स्ट के ज़माने में उसका इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशन हुआ। तो लोगों ने ईसाइयों ने अपनी बाइबल अंग्रेज़ी में पढ़नी शुरू की, लेकिन ओरिजिनली कहाँ लिखी गई थी? ग्रीक में। लेकिन ग्रीक को दोबारा पढ़ना और व्यापक तौर पर सैकड़ों लोगों के द्वारा पढ़ना जब हुआ यूरोप में, तो एक नई संस्कृति निकली। एंड दैट इज़ द ग्रेट चेंज दैट हैपेंड इन यूरोप, and Europe then started conquering the rest of the world. They became colonial powers. Of course, what they did to the rest of the world should not be an example to us. But if they can revive on borrowed text, why can we not revive ourselves on our own text? मेरा एक सीधा सा सवाल है। Those texts which sustained our universities for more than 1,000 years and sustained our civilization. आज हम जब किसी शास्त्र के बारे में सोचते हैं तो हम कहते हैं अरे साहब ये है, ठीक है, होगा, हमें क्या पता, पंडित जी से पूछ लेते हैं। लेकिन आप जानते हैं शास्त्र का क्या अर्थ होता है? शास्त्रम इति शासनोपायम। शास्त्र जो है वो एक मेथडोलॉजी है, एक सिस्टम है, जो किसी नॉलेज को समझने का और समझाने का तरीका होता है। इट इज़ अ मेथड ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग थिंग्स इन अ गिवन एरिया एंड ऑफ टीचिंग इट टू अदर्स and transmitting that system of knowledge from one generation to another. That is a Shastra. And there are Shastras, as I said, of all different systems, areas that human life consists of. तो इसलिए इकोनॉमिक्स का होता है, आर्ट का होता है, एस्थेटिक्स का होता है। ये सारी चीज़ें डिसिप्लिन्ड तरह से हमारे यहाँ लिखी गई, इन पर विचार हुआ, इन पर ग्रंथ लिखे गए। उन ग्रंथों को आफ्टर ए सर्टन पीरियड 100 साल 50 साल बाद रिवाइज किया गया, री एडिट किया गया, ऐड किया गया, अपडेट किया गया सैकड़ों साल तक, और उन्होंने एजुकेशन के द्वारा सिविलाइजेशन को सस्टेन किया। तो जब ये इतने बरसों हुआ तो वो आज उस सिस्टम को अपडेट करके आज मॉडर्न सिस्टम्स के साथ उसको मिलाकर हम अपने आप को रिवाइव क्यों नहीं कर सकते? सी आई कैन गिव यू में और एक मॉडर्निटी की दुनिया, एंड इट इज वेरी पेनफुल because these are life situations which confront us in a painful way. We see it every day. We see it in the breakup of families. We see in new kinds of marital relations. We see it in the kind of caste politics that is going on in our country today. We see it in terms of linguistic problems that exist. आज जो देश में मुसीबत होती है, हमारी आइडेंटिटी बदल गई। आज हम मराठी, हिंदी वाले, तमिलियन ये सब हो गए। 19वीं सेंचुरी से पहले ऐसा कोई इंडियन टेक्स्ट नहीं है जो किसी इंडियन को इस तरह से लिंग्विस्टिक्स टर्म में डिफाइन करता हो। We had a very different system. Language for us was the ability to express. ये स्किज़ोफ्रेनिया जिसमें अब हम रह रहे हैं, ट्रेडिशन और मॉडर्निटी के, ये नहीं जाएगा जब तक कि आप ट्रेडिशन के टेक्स्ट को नहीं समझेंगे। अब मैं एक ऐसे पॉइंट पर आता हूं जो बड़ा सेंसिटिव है और जिसने भारतवर्ष के अंदर, जिसकी कमी ने बहुत मुश्किलें हमारे लिए पैदा की हैं, और वो मुद्दा ये है कि हमारे स्कूल्स में और हमारे कॉलेजेस में धर्म के बारे में कोई शिक्षा नहीं होती। देयर इज़ नो टीचिंग ऑफ रिलीजियस टेक्स्ट। The kind of definitions that we have given of secularism has created this problem. We think that a secular state is not going to talk, teach and discuss the religious text. इसको ज़रा ध्यान से सुनिए जो मैं बात कहना चाह रहा हूँ। हम ये मानते हैं कि धर्म के बारे में शिक्षा है वो आपके माँ बाप दे देंगे। Your parents will tell you. So if I am a Christian boy, my Christian parents will tell me what are the fundamentals of Christianity. Or if I am a Muslim, then they will tell me and adequately tell me about this. Or if I am a Hindu belonging to any sect of Hinduism, then my parents would be in a position to tell me that. Now we all know that this is far from truth. That our parents are not at all informed. They are informed about vague things. They are not informed in detail. They are not sometimes informed even about certain fundamental ideas, because there has been no formal teaching. You see, if you want to know what is good dance, then you have to go to a dance teacher. वो आपको घर पे तो नहीं आ जाता, आपका शरीर अपने आप तो नहीं थिरकने लगता, And we know that. And we send our child or daughter to learn dance to a dance teacher or music or any of these things. Similarly, in order to understand what is the faith, the article of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Parsi, we have to talk about it. We have to be taught about it. Now, what has happened is that in India, we have not learned to distinguish between what is called propagation of a religion and teaching of the concepts of religion. ये एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात है, इसको ज़रा थोड़ा सा ध्यान दें. धर्म का, अपने संप्रदाय का, अपने मत का प्रचार करना, दूसरों को कन्वर्ट करना, दूसरों को इन्फ्लुएंस करना, ये एक बात है. लेकिन अलग अलग धर्मों के सिद्धांतों को समझाना, ये दूसरी बात है. Unfortunately, the Indian secular state has failed here. इसलिए आज क्या स्थिति है? What is the situation now? That the whole of India and the whole of communities, different communities, know extremely little about their own so-called religion, and they know nothing, or they know the most wrong things about others. And hence, what happens? That they fall victim to all kinds of malicious propaganda. जो आज भारत में सबसे बड़ी समस्या है वो यही है. हम गाना गाते रहते हैं, मजहब नहीं सिखाता आपस में बैर करना. लेकिन जब तक आप मजहब को समझेंगे, पढ़ेंगे नहीं, सीखेंगे नहीं, तब तक आप बैर ही करेंगे और कुछ नहीं करेंगे, प्रेम नहीं करेंगे. You know, loving God is not like sex, that a certain age comes and hormones change in the body and the desires come up. No. Understanding what is the higher function, understanding what is duty, responsibility, this has to be taught. This does not come naturally. It's not like hunger. It's not an instinct. It is to be given through a proper method and calibration. So it has to be given in a very simple way at primary level. It has to be given in a little more complicated way at secondary level. And it has to be given in a very intellectual way at the university level. This will not happen. Now, India is in a situation where it continuously boasts itself of as a spiritual land. हम धर्म गुरु हैं, हमारा देश ये, लेकिन हम अध्ययन तो कुछ नहीं करते. हमारे शिक्षा संस्थानों में तो इसका कोई जिक्र नहीं होता. हमारे यहाँ ये सुविधा नहीं है. हमारे यहाँ इसके प्रोफेसर्स नहीं हैं. और जब विदेशी हमारे ऊपर किताबें लिखते हैं तो हमें तकलीफ हो जाती है. तो हमारे यहाँ कंट्रोवर्सीज होती हैं और हम उन किताबों के जवाब नहीं दे पाते. और हम आपस में भी एक दूसरे से एक सही ढंग से व्यवहार नहीं कर पाते. You know, in certain complicated matters, in sophisticated cultures, one has to learn to disagree. That I have a difference of opinion with you, but yet you are quite acceptable to me. You are not unacceptable to me in every way. We have a difference. We agree to disagree. This is a hallmark of civilization. But how will this happen unless we have learned to think? So, lack of religious education or education on religious matters is one of the biggest drawbacks of the Indian education. And to compound the problem, we have divided societies into minority and majority, where we say that the so-called minorities can teach about religion in their institutions and the majority cannot. This is absolutely discriminatory. It has no logic, it has no foundation. But yet it is the order of the day. And it creates further disagreements, further heart-burnings, and further problems. So I think education has to bring in religious instruction, philosophical understanding of all the different denominations of religion that obtain in India, right from the primary to the highest level. And that is going to change, radically change, the climate of social harmony in India. Last thing that I'm going to say, that we have now to create a teacher-centered system. The most unfortunate thing which the British did to us, that we have an administrator-centered system. That we are living in practice in a country where policies regarding what is to be taught, what is not to be taught are made not only in New Delhi, but somewhere around, say, from Central Secretariat to UGC, bus. Within this 30 kilometers, that's all. This decides who is going to learn and who is going to teach what. 125 करोड़ लोगों के लिए यही फैसला हो जाता है. This is not only unnatural, this is against the whole history, against the whole spirit of what Indian education has been for thousands of years. You have to create a system where the teacher has to be respected and made responsible. आज सबसे बड़ी शिकायत होती है ये कि साहब टीचर तो रिस्पॉन्सिबल नहीं. वो इसलिए नहीं है कि आपने टीचर को इररिस्पॉन्सिबल मानकर उसके लिए सर्विस कंडीशंस बनाई. और आपने हमेशा ये मान लिया है कि ये टीचर ऐसा है कि ये किसी को कम नंबर देगा और किसी को ज़्यादा नंबर देगा. आपने ये ऐसा सिस्टम बनाया है कि टीचर को देखने वाला सिर्फ एक आदमी होगा या एक औरत होगी, द हेड ऑफ द इंस्टीट्यूशन. It is not a number of people who are watching the teacher and who are also responsible to the teacher. Those of you who have taught for 20 or 30 years must have felt the great decline in the respect that the parents of the students have for teachers. Parents don't respect the teacher anymore. Far from the... Now, it is only when you make parents in some ways responsible to the teacher, answerable to the teacher, and vice versa, teacher responsible to the parents, that you will have a teacher-centered system. It is not impossible to create such system. But then we have to first begin with decentralization. Delhi is not going to tell the rest of the states of India. You see, we have now a great consensus in all political parties that there should be standardized systems of examination for all over India. That different boards of examination boards in the country should somehow have an accreditation system. I think all this thinking is wrong. Let the employer decide. Let the employer decide who is a good degree holder. Let the degree, maybe the degree is from Andaman Nicobar. But it should be the employer who will decide whether I'll employ this person from Andaman Nicobar or from Delhi University. Create a system of that kind so that the states are independent, so that the states have give them freedom to make their own syllabus. Don't try to standardize. And therefore, my humble submission is that we don't need institutions like UGC. We don't need institutions like NCRT. Heavens will not fall. All kinds of standardization in India today has become nothing but the dictates of either a bureaucrat or a teacher bureaucrat for rest of the country. You see, talking again, I'll take 2 minutes more and then conclude my talk. Talking again of the Shastras. These Shastras were all India Shastras. Apastamba, Manu, Dharma Shastras, Natya Shastra for art, they were read all over India. People were traveling and exchanging manuscripts and going from one part of country to another. If you decentralize education today, you think people will stop coming out of their state? On the contrary, what I have seen in my teaching life of 40 years is that fewer teachers are going from one state to another to take jobs. They have become frogs in the well. When I was studying in my BA, I had more Bengali, more Keralite, more Tamil teachers coming and teaching me in Delhi, all kinds of things. And when I retired 2 years ago, I found that there were more sons of the soil in my university than any time that I had seen. So standardization has not brought in an all India character. It has brought in a Koop Manduk character, frog in the well character, because the system is highly bureaucratized and politicized. Decentralize education, bring in the classical systems of learning, make them compatible and part of curriculum, not extracurricular. The arts are today considered extracurricular. I don't know how many teachers are here who are music teachers in their schools. म्यूज़िक टीचर का काम तो सिर्फ इतना होता है कि अगर भरत गुप्त जी आए हैं स्कूल में तो एक गाना गवा दे. That's all. Because music is extracurricular, painting it extracurricular. The most beautiful things in our lives, in our country, and who knew more about the beauty of those things than Kamala Devi ji? You think she didn't know? She dedicated a whole life for that. These are people who do it. We still have people living like that. Dr. Kapila Vatsyayan, a disciple, younger disciple. They know what is the value, but we still continue calling arts as extracurricular. You are all aware of the fact that throughout its history, India invested in the arts more than any other civilization. We made beautiful things, architecture, parks, water systems. We made all kinds of things. The investment that we made in arts, in philosophy, was far more than any other culture did. And now, all that is extracurricular. So we have to address that. Arts have to become part of humanizing us. Otherwise, you know what we'll have? We'll have economists from business schools who will ruin your economy, as they have done in last 10 years, in spite of all these great economists taking the helm of the country has slided. This has happened so at Harvard, this has happened in Europe, this has happened all over the world. What are those business school brilliants doing? This is primarily because arts have been left out and we have become dehumanized. The greatest purpose of arts is to humanize us, to teach us how to respect and love our fellow beings. Thank you very much.